Hello friends and welcome. Today I'm going to give you a quick overview of patch 7.34, emphasis on quick, because the first thing you need to know is that they actually released a teaser all in emojis, the entire patch, and we spent today like a 4-hour, 5-hour stream, and then I made a video, and then before I could release the video, the real patch came out with real words. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of everything you need to know about this. Don't expect too much in-depth analysis. That will all come in separate videos by part as I learn more about the patch, because obviously it has just come out and we only got to play one game so far. The first change is to Captain's Mode, which will drastically change how the pros are thinking about their picks. The main thing is that the ban order and pick order is different. So originally it was 2-3-2 and then 2-2-1 picks. Now it depends if you are first pick or second pick. So first pick is going to ban 3-2-2. The second pick team is going to ban 4 picks, 1 pick, 2 picks on the different phases. And now the picks are 1-3 and then 1. So this might actually be easier to see in the emoji version of all of this. But you got the blue team first pick, right? They're going to ban, then the red team's going to ban twice, then the blue team, then the red team twice, blue team. So the main difference here is that you're going to see a lot more flex picks and overpowered picks, in my opinion, on this first pick here. Whereas in the past, you might see like a Broodmother opening into like some power duo, Leshrac Io. But now that Leshrac Io could get banned out in that next banning phase before you make it to the next phase where you pick 3 heroes. So I won't read too much into it right now, but expect to see some differences in the pro scene. You might notice a cyan box around some of your skills. That is due to the new UI. It is when you can have an alternative cast. So for example, Doom's Devour, maybe you want to capture a skill, maybe you just want to eat something without capturing a skill. This highlighted box will help you know the difference. There's going to be a new mechanic called slow resistance. All slows are being separated from status resistance. This is going to help a lot of heroes who got kited, such as Sven, classically a lot of melee heroes like Troll, Ursa, those types of heroes. Slows were one of their biggest issues, even outside of just general crowd control like other heroes. So now a lot of those heroes and items they like to buy have a new stat called slow resistance. So if you were, say, to be affected by a 50% slow, but you have 50% slow resistance, that doesn't mean you're not affected by slows at all. It means you're going to be hit by a 25% slow because the 50% slow is reduced by 50%. My cat is really excited about that. It might need some adjustments, but this could drastically shift the types of heroes we're going to see, along with some other changes that we'll get to. Scans now have 2 charges, so there's a bit more flexibility there. When you kill Roshan, you won't get any Watchers, so a little bit less of an advantage from killing the Roshan. The jungle watchers have been moved around a little bit on both sides of the map, along with the outposts, moving it from the main jungle over to the triangle jungle. I'm going to do a bit more of a breakdown on the map after I play it more, but my impression of this is that it's going to be harder to approach the triangle like it was in the past, and it's going to be easier to approach from that other jungle area, which is kind of what we did in the past. And then this patch 7.33, it was kind of just like whatever. Everywhere felt open, but with these map changes, I kind of think it's pushing back to like what we had before, but I will let you know as I play more. Blood Grenade is going to be cheaper, but you're only going to be able to have 2 in your inventory and 2 in the inventory stock in the store, and the restock time is going up. So make good use of your Blood Grenades. Don't waste them. They're still as powerful as they were before. You just can't get your hands on as many, but your starting builds will be a little cleaner now. Say you have 100 gold, rather than only being able to buy a Blood Grenade, you can now buy the Blood Grenade plus an Iron Branch, plus a Sentry, a Smoke, Clarity, all sorts of stuff. So more flexibility on your builds. You just have to be more careful about how you use the actual Blood Grenade. Smoke of Deceit is going to last longer when you use it, and a cool effect is that everyone can only be affected once, but let's say you smoke with 3 heroes and someone is outside of that smoke range. If you, the user of the smoke, walk near that person within 300 range, they will then be affected by Smoke of Deceit as well. So this is a cool way to maybe smoke towards a teammate, or you accidentally smoke and you miss one guy. This kind of like fixes that. But if you get smoked, you break it because you continue jungling, you cannot get re-smoked by, that same smoke. You're gonna have to pop another Smoke of Deceit, so still be careful of that. Armlet of Mordegon is going to get a 35% slow resistance. This is one of the big changes that I think we'll see, actually combined with this Battle Fury change, getting a little bit more damage, a buff to Battle Fury. Many of these melee type heroes like to build Armlet or maybe Battle Fury. Now with other items also getting slow resistance, I think we're gonna see a push towards that, kind of away from a lot of these like ranged illusion heroes that we've had for these recent patches. Desolator's a little bit stronger than it used to be, as well as Disperser, which is going to now affect a 350 AoE around your target. So that could be an ally buff so that you're all speed boosted, dispelled, or it could be used against the enemy so that they're all slowed. That is going to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to see some interactions like that, but not as much as I'm looking forward to Midas having 2 charges, so it's going to be a lot easier to be efficient with Midas, but the recharge time is going up a little bit to compensate. But overall, this is still a big buff to Midas in my opinion, because in the past it was pretty unavoidable to at some point, die and then have Midas on cooldown and you miss like 40 seconds because of your death timer. This charge system, as long as you are not letting it get to 2 charges, is going to help prevent all this downtime on Midas. Heaven's Halberd will no longer pierce debuff immunity. So for example, if you get halberded but you BKB, you will now be able to attack. So this is a huge change. This was a massive counter to BKB time limited heroes before, and that's part of why I think some of these like melee heroes are going to come back, because they were some of the most susceptible to Heaven's Halberd. Holy Locket gains all its charges when you refresh. So like Refresher Shard, we were joking about some meme builds, but maybe someone like Phoenix might make use of this, maybe Warlock, I don't know. I look forward to see if anyone commits to that meme. Lincolns, you can no longer stack a bunch on one hero. If you have your own Lincolns and someone uses it on you, you can block 2 spells, but you can't have like 5 Lincolns on you blocking 5 spells anymore. The most is 2 if you have your own Lincolns. Maelstrom and several other items, which I won't cover because we're covering it here, now do 150% bonus damage to illusions, or just I guess 50% bonus to illusions. This is going to make it easier to wave clear those illusions, and that's part of why I think we're going to start pushing away from that, favor some of these other heroes, but not fully, right? They're not going to be completely dead. Nullifier no longer pierces immunity either. Revenant's Brooch is also getting buffed. I expect more people to experiment with it. I'm not sure if this is enough to like make it amazing, but it does work well against BKB, which was kind of its biggest issue, and a lot of people stayed away from it because of that. But due to the BKB changes and this item now providing a -20 magic resistance debuff, I think it's going to be a bit more playable. Atos no longer builds out of crowns, instead it builds out of vitality booster, and that means it is 500 gold cheaper, does not provide any strength or agility, and a little bit less intelligence than before, but it now provides 300 health. I could see this being a support item because it's now in line with like Glimmer and 4-staff prices. It still builds into Gleipnir though, so I'm a little confused on who's going to build Gleipnir, because now you have this like Atos, which is like intelligence health, but then Maelstrom, which is typically on right clickers. It's kind of a weird combo, so I'm looking forward to see who ends up actually building this items, but some supports might just build Atos and leave it at that. Spirit Vessel got a big buff here. It's going to build out of crowns instead of vitality boosters. I think this is going to be a lot better for all sorts of heroes, but especially universal heroes. It's going up to 12 all stats, no health, but the 10 extra strength pretty much covers that. Veil of Discord also gets a big buff here, where it will now do 200 damage to all barriers. So that's like Pipe, Pavis, a couple different hero spells like Abaddon Shield. You'll just do 200 damage to the barrier, as well as the usual Veil of Discord spell amp. So I think this might make this a bit more favorable of an item. We might see more people experiment with it. Neutral items got a lot of little buffs and nerfs here and there, but I'm not going to worry about it. I think pretty much all of them help to put the items in line. Feel free to read through this yourself if you want later. For heroes, we're only going to focus on those that look really good or really bad, or just have like really extreme changes, because a lot of these are just small buffs and nerfs. I will make a video later letting you guys know which ones I think are the best. That is going to take some time as the patch changes. Anti-Mage's Shard can now be used on allies as well as his own counterspell, so it's a separate ability. He can shield himself and an ally. Beastmaster's Hawk will no longer be a scout that you send out. It's going to circle around him and do damage every few seconds. That scales with the Hawk's attack speed. So when you buff it with attack speed auras, it'll actually attack and root a little bit faster. So very interesting. When you get a shard, you'll have 2 Hawks. Bristleback's Aghanim Scepter now makes him a shotgun, and you click and point in a direction and he shoots out 6 quills from his back. It's very funny. I don't know how good it actually is because it is an Aghanim's, but each one gives him a stack of his ultimate, so it's a very quick way to max out on stacks at the start of a team fight. So I think it could actually be pretty good. He built Ags before anyways, so I think it's worth experimenting with. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up pretty good. Centaur Warrunner can now move while casting Hoof Stomp, so you have a little bit easier of a time tracking the actual stomp. You can still cancel it without putting it on cooldown, so overall a really nice buff to make this easier to use. Crystal Maiden's Aghanims now does what the Shard did before, and the Shard now gives her a new slick move where she slides back, leaves a crystal clone, and if AoE damage kills that clone, then it will burst and apply Frostbite to everyone in that area. It's very interesting. I think it could actually be quite good. It also dies after time and also roots in the area. So it's actually like a mobility escape tool on Crystal Maiden. It was very unexpected. I think it could be quite good for her. Doom is being reworked. Doom no longer mutes items. It's the end of an era. It will instead completely prevent healing, kind of like a single target AA ult. So people can still use items, but they just can't heal. It's very interesting. I already ran into the one game I played. It is annoying. It is strange to be able to use items. So like I got doomed once and then I just like pig out, ran away. So I'm not sure, but I think the reason they need to do this is because Doom is too good in the pro scene while being really bad. He keeps getting hit with nerfs. Prior to this patch, he had like a 40% win rate. He was at the very bottom of heroes in pub games, but you would still see him in the pro scene because the way that the economy works around Devour, how he has an advantage there, plus the ability to just remove a single hero with Doom by muting them, by silencing them, I think it was just very difficult to balance the pub and the pro scene. So I think that's why they're trying to adjust it to make it easier to kind of like align the pub and pro scene. Earth Spirit's rolling boulder makes him untargetable, and now he can roll through things like Ice Path. He can't be stunned, he can't be targeted. So pretty much once you get rolling, that roll is going to finish wherever you lined it up. You can get stunned as you start the roll, but once you're actually invulnerable, you are good to go until you collide with your target. Enchantress's Aghanim Scepter and Shard are swapping. Enigma can no longer cast Demonic Conversion on units. This is the end of an era of eating your own creeps in the lane and pretty much guaranteeing equilibrium. It's a little sad to see it go, but it was extremely hard to play and balance around. It was very unique. They'd already removed it from other sources, so I kind of see why they're removing it from Enigma. I don't understand what they did to him to balance us out, though, because that's a nerf, and the Eidolons now spawn around you, so it's kind of cool you don't have to use it on creeps if you're, like, near a team fight, but I don't think that's a huge deal. It now costs health as well to use Eidolons and mana. It's not just health, it's health and mana, and Midnight Pulse got its interval change, so that's not really a buff. It's a little bit of a buff, I guess, but not a huge buff. I don't know, so it feels like overall a nerf, but maybe they can now buff him in other regards because this was, again, another hero very powerful in the pro scene, but very difficult in the pub scene, or people just weren't capable of making the full use of him like the pros were, so it was hard to balance. So I think that's what this change is leaning towards. Grimstroke might actually be good. So W, it's going to be very fast. There's some changes to it, but it's ultimately the same. Inkswell is what's changing. So it's now a 5-second duration, but you can activate it again to explode at any time. So if someone's trying to teleport right in front of you, you can like quickly double tap it, pop it right away, cancel the stun, or you can put it on someone, have them run at the opponent, and once they're about to get out of range, perhaps, you can stun them, or when multiple heroes are in there and they're about to split up, you can stun them. If that's never going to happen, you can just run the whole 5 duration and then have it explode at the end. So a lot more flexibility around Inkswell should make it much easier to actually get value out of it, whereas in the past, many people would just like stun the target and then back off. Now, if you put it on, say, your offlaner, they chase, they get stunned, you see that happen, you're not the one stunned, so you can still break Inkswell right there and stun them before they get out of range. So I think this is very good for it, along with Soulbind now piercing debuff immunity. So this is good for the hero as a whole, but if we are kind of correct and the type of heroes like Sven, Lifestealer, those kiteable melee heroes actually make a resurgence, that's actually also good for Grimstroke because it's easier to work with those types of heroes using Inkswell, and it's easier to work against them with Soulbind because it's much easier to leash melee heroes than it is to leash ranged heroes. So, couple things looking to go in his way. I hope he is back. Invoker is now a universal hero. I'm extremely excited about this. I think he can be played support, and it's what I played for my very first game, and we had draft issues, but I saw potential there. So being a universal hero, I think the Iron Branch start, being annoying in the right clicking, that helps. his Quas, Wex, and Exort are changing. So they are no longer giving as much strength, agility, and intelligence per level because he's now universal. It'd be too powerful. And they no longer grant this like health regen, attack speed, and extra damage. Instead, Quas, when you have the orbs up and you cast a spell, your spells will do spell lifesteal based on how many orbs you have up. Or they'll have CDR depending on the orbs you have up. Or they'll do extra spell amp. So which one you want depends on the situation. Cold Snap heals you every time it procs, and then Ghost Walk, I don't know who came up with these numbers, but for every point in Quas you have, you're going to get 10 HP regen, and for every point in Wex you get, you're going to have 5 mana regen. So that means when you have 3 points in Wex, you have 15 mana regen. That's pretty insane. So it's this ability combined with Cold Snap working with Urn, and now the Spirit Vessel, which is a built off crowns, which fit your universal new status. This combo just felt really powerful when I tried it. I still lost, I admit, but I think it had other issues, so I'm going to give it more of a go. I'm very excited about this, if you can't tell. I think it'll work. Io no longer provides spell amp, but instead provides slow resistance. I think they're pulling Io away from those like spellcaster combos like Leshrac and Storm Spirit and working more towards the old like Sven Tiny combos. Lion's Mana Drain doesn't have a cost and now works on allies even without the talent. So you can use it in the lane, for example, to drain the enemy. You top up, and now you drain your ally to like give them a bunch of mana. It's going to be 50% efficiency on allies. I'm interested. Maybe like QEE build could be viable in some lanes, but maybe you still do the usual just QEQ, stuff like that. There's going to be more flexibility with this, definitely in the laning stage, because you can now like help out your allies a bit more than you could before. Lone Druid is going through a series of changes. You may not even see this hero very much in your pubs, but I think he's going to be very different. There's going to be a lot of optimization on the build because the bear is now a universal creep hero. Before, stats didn't do anything for it, but now they will. They'll give their effects, and they'll give the damage based on the universal conversion. He also has his own Aghanim Scepter and Shard. So the Scepter is the one you knew before, where he can walk away from Lone Druid and do his own thing. The Shard is now Fetch, and he will drag people back towards Lone Druid. It'll do damage. It goes for a certain amount of time. He's slowed while doing it. You can use it on runes, and there's no slow when he does that. Very interesting concept. Spirit Link is the Aghanims for Lone Druid himself. Instead of being linked to his bear, he can link to an allied hero. The bear is feared in this time. This ability lasts for 20 seconds. So the bear pretty much cannot do anything unless it has its own Aghanims when you try to use your Aghanims, the Spirit Link. If not, the bear just like runs away for the full 20 seconds, but you now share your attack speed, armor, and all that with the hero. We were joking about a support Lone Druid build. I don't know how viable that is, but it's going to take some Lone Druid experts to figure out the new like optimal build for this guy. Luna Shard now spins glaives around her. They give her 20% damage reduction, and they all do damage. Marcy's sidekick is going through a change. It's hard for me to say if this is good or not yet. The buff is permanent, so you use it on an ally, and you can change it. There's a 40 or 20-second cooldown. And once you're like attached to an ally, you both share lifesteal. So when you heal, that person heals. When that guy heals, you heal through the lifesteal, not through like other heals. You get full damage and lifesteal when you're within 2,500 units of each other. When you are further than that, Marcy still gets 50% of the bonus, but the other person does not. We noticed, I don't know if it's a bug or not, but when you're farther apart, when Marcy still hits things, the other person still heals. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but that maybe, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but it's also pretty different. So we're just going to have to see how this plays out. Morph Ags is now different. He can choose to use it on an enemy, and instead of just copying that enemy, he can actually create a clone instead. That clone can use abilities, or he can take over that clone spot. So you can now choose if you want to like teleport over there, let it move freely, or just like not use that effect and just copy the hero like usual. Nature's Prophet Sprout will now do damage over time when you are in or around it within a 275 radius. Night Stalker's Crippling Sphere has damage over time, and when he uses his ultimate, his other abilities will all refresh. Omni Knight has Repel again. So Repel can only be dispelled so far that we found by Shadow Demon and Doom. Other dispels, which were a massive counter to Heavenly Grace, such as Yule's, Oracle's Q, things like that, they don't work because Repel is the old spell immunity, if you didn't know that. It is now on a very long cooldown. It is 45 seconds at max level, 60 seconds at level 1. It lasts for 6 seconds. It will give you bonus strength and HP regen still, and it still has the bonus based on how many debuffs you are currently suffering from. It doesn't matter if you dispel them. You can just have the debuff immunity and then be affected by like 10 debuffs. That's fine. You'll get the bonus based on that. So I'm not sure how good this is for him, but Repel was very powerful. That's why it got removed. Then Omni Knight dropped off a lot, so maybe they decided to bring it back. If you get hit by Sanity's Eclipse by OD, be careful about using spells for 7 seconds because you're allergic to mana, and that means however much mana your spell costs, you're going to take that damage, and you're actually going to heal OD for 150% of that mana value. Instead of damage reduction, Pangolier is going to get a barrier. You cannot stack this too high. I checked. 5 stacks is the most, so 1,000 barrier or 1,500 with the talent. Lucky Shot no longer disarms, but instead applies an attack speed reduction. Phantom Assassin can no longer randomly crit you with her dagger and kill you in one shot. Instead, she now gains Deadly Focus. There's a 20% chance when she attacks or a 40% chance when she uses the dagger. When she has Deadly Focus, it's a buff that can be dispelled actually, interestingly enough, but when she has it, her next attack will crit. The buff lasts for 6 seconds, so it's possible for her to attack something, get the buff, throw the dagger, have that crit, based on the old crit values, 200, 325, 450. But if she throws a dagger and gets the Deadly Focus, she can't throw another dagger and crit off of that because the Deadly Focus only lasts 6 seconds, and that's how long the dagger cooldown is. What this means is that it is much more difficult for her to just throw daggers and crit you to death. I'm really talking to you support players out there who have experienced this, but it does give her a little bit more control to maybe like farm a creep, get the crit, and then decide to commit on the enemy based off of that. Or throw a dagger, see that it procs the Deadly Focus, and then she jumps in to commit because she knows she's going to start that fight with a big crit. So technically a nerf in that her daggers can't crit just randomly, but I consider this a pretty decent buff because she's got a lot more control over her crits and when to commit. But it can be dispelled. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but there is going to be a level of counterplay around that. Sunray now applies 2% miss chance every time it does a tick of damage, which is 0.2 second intervals. So for 1 second of Sunray, you are now applying a 10% miss chance, and that goes up to a 50% miss chance as you complete the full Sunray. Razor's passive Storm Surge has the old shard just built into the ability now, and the shard now creates like a little vacuum pull between Static Link. He can choose to use it or not, but essentially it'll pull the 2 units together, making it more difficult for people to get away, but it also limits his movements a little bit when he tries to move away from that target, so that's why you might choose to toggle that off, and then you have like free movement like usual. Sand King Sandstorm will slowly move towards him anytime he is not dead in the center. This is technically a nerf because now you have a rough idea of what quarter Sand King is in, whereas before it didn't move, so he could have been anywhere in that circle. But the buff to this is that as a fight develops or as you finish farming in the lane, you're moving to a camp, the Sandstorm will like slowly drag with you. So we'll see how this plays out. I think it's meant to be a buff. Shadow Shaman's Hex now actually applies damage amp, and the duration is up by 0.7 seconds at level 1, but the cooldown doubled as well. So pretty cool. It's going to be easier to kill heroes when you apply Hex. Snapfire is one of the most popular cores at the end of the last patch, so there's actually a buff to Lil Shredder damage, but a nerf to the mana cost, and then the talents were swapped. So instead of at level 20, you get your attack damage on Lil Shredder, that's now 25, and at 20, you get the 3 times Lil Shredder shot. Sniper's Assassinate does less damage, but it applies an auto attack. So there's more potential later on as you build up damage, and so as you get like some Daedalus, Divine Rapier, you can hit huge Assassinates. And if you kill a hero with Assassinate, or I'm sorry, if you get any kill with Sniper, you refresh Assassinate. So this could be because you assassinate someone with your ultimate, or you use Assassinate to like burst them with some damage, and then you right-click them down, you kill them, it will then refresh Assassinate. Spectre's ultimate and Aghanims are swapping, so she now has Shadow Step. It is going to be a lower cooldown, which I think is pretty good, but it will not target all enemy heroes. You have to have vision of a single target, and you can jump over there. To get your old haunt, you have to buy the Aghanims. I personally think this will be good for Spectre as a whole, but it is a nerf in some elements. Like her team fight naturally is going to be a bit worse, but her pick-off potential is going to be a lot better, and that's kind of where she was a bit slow because Haunt was such a long cooldown. This is a much shorter cooldown to allow her to participate in early fights, and I think that will be good to help her get to her late game potential faster. Techies can activate Taser again to explode it on command whenever he wants. Tidehunter's got a new shard. He attaches an anchor to an enemy hero and it drags behind them. They are leashed for 10 seconds, but they can kill the anchor by attacking it 5 times. Very interesting concept. We're just gonna have to see how it plays out. The sound effects are amazing. Treant's Nature's Grasp is going to count as trees, so I guess you can use it from the trees, walk through it with that same move speed bonus, and attack people, and when they hit you back, because you're in trees, your passive isn't breaking. The tree search radius is also a little bit larger to give you a bit more room to move around through the woods. Tusk's tag team now has a passive where he has a 20, 30, 40, 50 attack speed slow aura, just like all the time, which I think is actually pretty good. Vengeful Spirit is getting 10 base attack speed, and Wave of Terror is going to reduce enemies' total attack damage. Not base, total. So when they have 3 Divine Rapiers, you can reduce that by 30%. So I think this is really good. I'm going to test some max Wave of Terror laning stage with Vengeful Spirit. It should allow her to win a lot of right-click trades. 1 being a universal hero, 2 attacking a little bit faster, and 3 reducing the enemy's armor and damage. So I think this should help her laning stage a lot, which was really her biggest weakness. Void Spirit's Aether Remnant will no longer just die when it hits 1 creep. It's actually just going to do 30% of damage to everything in that range, so this should help his farming speed. Warlock's Fatal Bonds will now spawn imps when people or units die while affected by Fatal Bonds. Depending on the level of Fatal Bonds will determine the level of the imp. When you get the shard, you will still summon imps through Upheaval, and you will add 1 extra level to the imps. The level of the imps is based on Fatal Bonds, even though you're casting Upheaval with the shard. Winter Wyvern can't do physical damage to people affected by Winter's Curse, which I think hurts core Winter Wyvern, but they do take 30% more magical and pure damage from Winter Wyvern, which I think helps support Winter Wyvern. Might still be okay for core Winter Wyvern. Death Ward does pure damage and pierces debuff immunity, so in most cases, this is a buff. It will do more damage. That is it for now. If you want to see my entire first impression of it or the emoji version, check out my VOD channel. It will be linked. That'll be coming out at some point. I'm tired. I'm probably going to do it tomorrow. But if you're watching this video, I've probably released it overnight. And so when I wake up in the morning, I will be playing Dota and we will be exploring this patch. I'd love for you to drop by. That link is also in the description. I'll see you there.